While containment and recovery is a vital part of spill response, no part of a spill response outweighs another. It's critical to ensure that operations works hand in hand with wildlife management to ensure that all receptors are protected. Wildlife management should be considered at the very beginning of the spill at the same time containment and recovery is happening. The earlier you begin wildlife mitigation, the more successful you'll be at protecting them and their habitat. Today we're going to talk about options available through WCSS when you have a spilled fluid that is impacting or has the potential to impact wildlife and their habitat. This includes what's important to know about the WCSS wildlife units, when and where equipment should be used, and the importance of ensuring that you are aware of what your wildlife specialists will need for a successful operation. WCSS has several units available. They are strategically located throughout the jurisdictional boundary to ensure timely access during a response. As with any other type of WCSS equipment, a lease agreement will need to be signed in order to access the wildlife response unit. Some units are trailers and others are sea cans. Since WCSS equipment can be mobilized from anywhere within our jurisdictional boundary, it will be important for you to know what transportation requirements there will be when you are requesting the equipment. The units contain tools, PPE, and safety gear, hazing equipment, deterrents, and capture and appropriate boxes and cages for transport. Depending on the level of contamination, wildlife face varying levels of immediate impacts, including hypothermia, starvation, neurological damage, among others. There are various long-term impacts. Some of these include displacement and habitat loss, fertility and shell thickness, and compromised immune systems. Activate your emergency response plan and establish a wildlife branch in the planning section of your incident command structure as early as possible. With the help of wildlife experts, you can conduct an initial wildlife impact assessment. This will include recording and reporting incidental wildlife sightings and the location of wildlife encountered. It's important to maintain records of wildlife occurrences throughout all stages of the project. If you are the first responder on a spill, there are numerous things that you can do to manage wildlife and mitigate the effects of spilled fluids on them and their habitat. Determine what the contaminant is and where it's moving, and what species may be affected by its presence. Avoid dispersing wildlife into potential contaminant migration paths. Activities that can be done without specific federal or provincial permits include setting up deterrents, passive hazing, like using air horns to scare wildlife away from dangerous areas, and setting up wildlife and amphibian fencing. There's no specific method to setting wildlife deterrents. In fact, deterrents work best when they are random and moved often. You can have as many deterrents as you like, as long as they're dispersed throughout your work area and you move them at random time intervals. Some deterrents work better than others depending on the type of wildlife present on your site, but all deterrents are going to benefit wildlife management. Visual wildlife deterrents can include scarecrows, car lot flagging, mylar tape, pie plates, scary eyes, kites, and birds of prey. The WCSS trailer has a lot of different types of deterrents. In this box, we've got things like car lot flagging, mylar tape, and my favorite, pie plates. All of these things can be used to scare wildlife away from your site. They work particularly good for birds. There's also a variety of different types of kites and scary eyes. These things can be put anywhere around your spill site. The key is to make sure that you move them frequently. The WCSS wildlife units have a variety of effigies or statues that you can use throughout your spill site. These things include things like the owl, eagles, kites, and scarecrows. Audio deterrents like bird guards, air horns, and zone cannons must be used with caution and cannot be used within proximity to houses, in national or provincial parks, or near roadways. Wildlife adapt quickly, so change the location of these deterrents frequently. When installing a wildlife fence, remember that they are not physical barriers. They are visual barriers for most large mammals. Make sure that your wildlife fence is 2 meters high, and if the spill occurs in spring, summer, or fall, you must add amphibian fencing that is keyed 10 centimeters into the ground. The fence should be kept tight around the area of impact that wildlife have access to. This can be around the oiled areas at the break point or in areas where contaminants have pooled. Use orange snow fence or panel fence. Create visual jogs and breaks in your fence line. If wildlife can't see the end of it, they will go through it. Attach pie plates, flags, or kites to the top of your fence. This creates both noise and sights that scare wildlife away. Conduct routine inspections of the fence and maintain documentation. To protect reptiles, amphibians, and small mammals from spilled fluids, construct a barrier fence along the inside of the snow fence, with pitfall traps at several locations. Dig a 10-centimeter trench along the inside of the snow fence. Key the silt fence into the trench and attach it to the snow fence. Place pitfall traps at locations identified by your wildlife specialist along the inside and outside perimeter of your amphibian fence. Keep the fence area small, especially for amphibians. Most amphibians will just keep following the fence line till they get really tired and usually end up dying. Monitor the traps and release animals that are not contaminated. Contaminated animals will need to be assessed by a wildlife specialist and the local agency representative to determine follow-up actions. Make sure that you maintain documentation. Keeping really good field notes is a great start. Consider a variety of deterrents for keeping birds out of your spill site. Use mylar tape or survey flagging and a variety of hazing equipment. In small areas, deploy stringers at 3-meter intervals across the spill site, with mylar tape attached every meter. In larger areas, use a combination of people, equipment, boats, and other materials identified by the wildlife specialists and local area representatives. People and equipment are usually the best wildlife deterrents. Look for nearby habitat that may be appealing to wildlife and keep this as a sanctuary for them. For example, limit boat traffic on nearby lakes or keep laydown areas out of high-quality habitat. Under the direction of a trained biologist, set up attractants such as bird decoys in areas away from your spill. Don't forget to keep your staging area clean and garbage-free. This will ensure that you aren't attracting wildlife to your work area. Wildlife are very much a stakeholder that are important during a spill response, and they can be affected severely by spills. WCSS is constantly honing the wildlife trailers to make them more efficient and effective for you. For more information, please visit our website.